What's going on, y'all? It's Double M Live, and tonight we got a special edition going on with some wrestling talk with myself here alongside the executive producer, Cool Sam, right here next to me. Shout out to Cool Sam in the building, holding it down.
Yes,
What's
sir.
going on, Sam? How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. The wrestling world's on fire right now. A nerd like me is in heaven. I'm ready.
So we're not even going to waste any time. Again, this is Double M Live, presented by Bet Online AG. Make sure you check out Bet Online AG for sure, for all your betting needs. But yeah, the wrestling world is on fire, like you just said, Sam. There's a lot of hot topics, you know,
hmm
going on right now in the wrestling world, especially within the WWE, which, in my opinion, is still the top wrestling company out there for sure. I know the companies are trying to battle. AEW is doing their things, and there's other small ones, Impact Wrestling. But come on now, we all know WWE is still holding the titles, the number one wrestling company for
Sure
sure
is.
in the
For
business.
now.
For now, the tides may turn. Who knows? And if they do, you know, it is what it is. It's all a part of the competitive business. But biggest news right now in the wrestling world, and especially within WWE, the former women's tag team champions Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out after supposedly some creative differences going on backstage. I think it was last Monday night, um, or 2 Raws ago, if I believe
Yep.
is correct. Two
Two
Raws
Raws.
ago, as we here recording on the 24th of May. It was the Raw previous to that, previous to the 23rd. Um, Sasha Banks and Naomi were supposedly, you know, set to be on the show, set to compete and whatnot. And the creative heads in the back had a plan for them to. And reportedly, Sasha Banks and Naomi weren't feeling the ideas, weren't
Nope.
feeling the thought process, and whatever else was supposedly supposed to take place. And word has it that they threw their titles down and stormed out of the arena and walked out on the show. So, thoughts, feelings, reaction. There's more stuff that has come out since that's happened, but thoughts, feelings, and reactions, Sam, from when that first took place.
So when it originally broke out during Raw, which I found very odd, they just came out and said that Sasha and Naomi just up and left the arena. That's all they said at first. So we were thinking maybe it's a medical emergency, something happened. We didn't know what. Then later on in the show, we're hearing that they were disgruntled. They didn't like the storyline that they got thrown into because supposedly they felt like the tag team championships weren't being valued. They got thrown into a six-way match that was going to be them, I believe, Oscar, Becky Lynch, Dewdrop, and Nikki ASH, I believe. And the winner was supposed to face Bianca Belair for her title. And they didn't like the booking for that because they're both tag team champions and you're throwing them into a six-way bout where they're going to eventually have to fight each other, right? So you're throwing them into a storyline over one belt when they're already champions and they don't have their own storyline. So they felt like creative was doing them a disservice and showing disrespect not only to them but to those women's tag team championships. And they threw their belts on John Laurinaitis' desk, who is the creative director right now in WWE, and they walked the hell out. It's weird to me because disgruntled wrestlers, they never give you that much information about them right then and there. You know, this isn't the first time a wrestler hasn't liked the creative route that WWE put them on.
Always happens. Yep.
And it happens all the time because sometimes those storylines are ass. If we're going to be honest with ourselves,
Yep.
sometimes they suck. And this t- um, six person battle royal, it it's a lame idea to have Sasha and Naomi in it because they're already champions. Where is the storyline for them? WWE really dropped the ball. Why have women's tag team titles in a promotion that doesn't have women's tag teams? Every time they create a women's tag team, they face whoever the tag team champions are, and then that team is dissolved quickly thereafter. So those belts really haven't been valued much since their inception a couple years ago. Um, and Sasha is someone that's felt betrayed by WWE before, and
Yep.
she's had to take some time out because of all the times that she's had to put wrestlers over, um, especially at WrestleMania. She's until she won the tag team belt with Naomi, which, if we're gonna be honest, all with all due respect, isn't doesn't hold the same weight as winning a major title at WrestleMania. Other than that, she's lost every WrestleMania match that she's been in to put the other wrestler over. And now she finally has a win at WrestleMania, albeit it's a tag team title, but a win for a title nonetheless. And since then, there's been nothing. A
Yeah.
couple matches at some house shows, a couple matches on Raw or SmackDown, but no real title defenses, no real storylines. They're just there to be there.
Yeah, and this whole situation can go off in various directions because out of the many things you just mentioned, I'm gonna get to Sasha in a second, but yeah, those tag team titles, those women's tag team titles, have literally been a waste. I couldn't really tell you who has held those titles since they have been created. Um, And even if I could tell you who held those titles when they were created, no, none of the title runs have ever been anything memorable. And a lot of it is because WWE doesn't put a lot of stock in trying to create and develop a women's tag team division. Every single champion, I believe, has been thrown together. There's never been oh, this is a women's tag team that's come up through NXT and now they're um being debuting on the main roster. The only tag team I can think of that did that was maybe the Iconics.
Yep.
Other than that, all the women's tag teams that we've seen have literally been single competitors who have just been thrown together, put into tag team matches, and little storyline is created. But in all honesty, like you said, there's never been a lot of time, effort, and energy put towards that division and put towards developing an actual tag team. And, okay, shout out to them finally saying, all right, let's give some women who are actually somewhat popular. You put the titles on Naomi and Sasha, two pretty popular women, but again, no real storyline being developed for them. They just have the titles. They didn't compete at WrestleMania Backlash, which you and I got a chance to attend. Um,
Yep.
and no storyline being developed. So the fact that you know they're now on Monday Night Raw being just pushed into this, yeah, they're being put into the main Raw Women's Championship picture, but it's like, hey, we already have titles. What do we need to do that for if we could just make these titles that we're coming out with and wearing around our waist big? And then on the Sasha's Banks side of it, and I mean Naomi's important too, but definitely with Sasha because she's the bigger star here. She has definitely been disrespected over the years. We've had this conversation numerous times, Sam. There's
Hmm.
no reason why Sasha Banks shouldn't be as popular as Charlotte Flair on the roster and not as popular as Becky Lynch on the roster because Sasha Banks has her fan base and her fans are loyal. Like,
Loyal.
don't matter if she's playing a baby face or a heel, people go crazy for Sasha Banks whenever she's involved in the show, whenever she comes out, whenever her music drops. So she has been disrespected. Fans know she's disrespected, and here's just another situation where the disrespect shows even more.
It it's sad because to when you get further into the story, you hear that the real aggravation came from the fact that they were going to supposedly, because this is all hearsay, Supposedly, they were going to have Naomi pin Sasha in the match, which again makes no sense. And then Naomi was going to go on to face Bianca Belair and lose to her to further push Bianca's title run. And then Sasha, while I guess Naomi was going to focus on her title match with Bianca, Sasha was going to go ahead and challenge Ronda on SmackDown and lose to her to boost Ronda's title run. Now,
Stupid. It's
it,
stupid.
it, if this is true, and I'm torn between whether or not I hope it's not true because I hope WWE creatives not that dumb.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, what else could this possibly be? Why would you use the tag team champions to put over the single champions in that division when there's other female competitors? Granted, Charlotte Flair's on a leave of absence right now. I think
Yep.
she'll be gone for a couple months. I heard she got married, and she'll be celebrating a honeymoon. If so, Mazel Tov. That should be a fun time. But you have other competitors on the roster. You have a Shayna Baszler. You have a Tamina who's due to finally have a push herself. You have a um, what's her name?
Which roster?
Uh, uh, SmackDown. I guess she's tagged. She's a tag team with Shayna Baszler.
Ooh, see, I don't know the division like that.
What's her name? She has ties to the Hart family. What is her name?
Natalia.
Natalia. Yes. So you have her. You have Dewdrop. You have Nikki Ash. You have
Where's
you have
Bailey?
Bailey's coming back soon. Her injury status, I don't.
I
She
swear
got a
she's healthy.
weird. She got a weird Markel Fultz thing going on where she's just been injured for a long
Yeah.
time and don't nobody really know what's up with that. You have Rhea Ripley. There are people that you can have face these women and make them competitive matches and competitive storylines.
Yep.
Why use your tag team champions, especially knowing everything Sasha's been through in terms of putting wrestlers over? You can't tell me that you're a top talent, not only in your division, but in the company, really. Because a lot of wrestling circles have Sasha Banks as the best female wrestler in the company,
There
in
could
the
be an argument
promotion, right?
made for sure. There could definitely be an argument for that.
So imagine having your best wrestler continuously put other wrestlers over in big main event matches, especially on WrestleMania, and then essentially telling her that her tag team title run with someone who also has been thrown away and casted aside. Let's not forget, Naomi's a two-time SmackDown champion.
We kind of lost your audio there for a little bit, Sam.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit. Yeah, yeah. I think you're back.
Better now?
Better now. Yeah. Just gotta.
Sorry.
There you go. There you go.
There we are.
Yep.
So Naomi's a former champion herself, but since those days she got casted aside, hasn't been shown any love. She's basically been used as a jobber. She just comes out to get her ass beat by whoever's hot at the time. And now you give two women an opportunity to get belts, make those tag team titles relevant, and you say, maybe not. It doesn't make any sense. Like, if all this is true, why wouldn't they walk out and leave?
And you have some people who arguing, the whole situation because there's people like, hey, why would you walk out? Just do your job. You work for the company, do your job. So there's people who support the walk out and say, hey, good for them standing up for themselves. A stupid situation. You got to advocate for yourself. And of course, good job for walking out. And then there's other people on the side of it saying, hey, you work for this company. You got to show up for work. They tell you got a job to do. Go do it. So, I mean, there's people on both sides of the fence. I see both sides. I understand that, hey, This company's paying you a lot of money to show up and do your job. You just got to show up and do it. And then also hear the other side of, look, if you think something's stupid and it's not worth your time and you think you could be utilized in a better way or things can go differently, why not advocate for yourself? So there's people on both sides of the argument.
And I get it, but I feel as if, especially now, 2022, in an age where athletes are advocating for themselves more than ever, if you feel like the company or the team or the organization that you're with isn't utilizing you or your talents or your time in the best possible way for you to be successful, this is the time to speak up for it. We've seen it happen in other sports. Aaron Rodgers spoke up when he felt like the Packers were doing him wrong. But most people, even though there were some people that thought, he was whining too much and complaining, I feel like most people backed up Aaron Rodgers. They viewed him as someone that was standing up for himself because the Packers were doing him dirty. They drafted Jordan Love
Yep.
in the
Yep.
first round, didn't get him any offensive help. So, like, of course he'll be mad. Now, granted, does wrestling fall under the same category as these other sports? No. We know it's a scripted television show and everything, but those are still athletes. I'm telling you right now, I can't get up and do any of those things those people go out there and do in the ring. And neither could the average person. Now, especially with wrestlers, they make money off merchandise and their likeness, right? So if you keep booking me wrong and making me look bad, yeah, you paying me, but you also kind of messing with my money too.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't gonna want to keep buying merchandise for somebody who keeps losing. I never seen a loser's I never seen a loser's jersey sell out.
True. 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 You just said something though that is very important or very interesting in using the word scripted. Now, like we were talking about before, or before we went on the air, this is something different for the WWE in terms of really airing out dirty laundry. They don't do that. They keep a
Nope.
lot of stuff under wraps, and stuff may get leaked out here and there, but you never see WWE on their show. Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and these other guys working the commentary booth, airing out things going on. But once that thing happened last Monday Night Raw, they didn't waste no time going public and addressing what happened and saying these two women walked out on the show. They took their ball home and went home. Shout out to Stone Cold from years ago when he did that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that raises another question because that's something out of the ordinary for the WWE. So it raises the other question of, did this really happen, or is this all a work to possibly shine light and highlight these two women, the tag team titles, the tag team division? Is this all a much bigger storyline taking place?
So I've been talking to people all week about this, and this is the biggest back and forth in wrestling right now. People don't know if this is really an angle, if this is a work, if this is a storyline, or if these women are really ready to leave WWE. I will say this: if this is a storyline, if this is a work, kudos,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
kudos, because it's a good one. Because it's headlines everywhere.
Yep.
Bleacher Report. I think I seen Sports Illustrated talk about it. Now, whenever Sasha posts anything on social media, it's 10 times as popular because it's people are saying, look at Sasha still enjoying life after WWE and
Yep.
everything. If this is an angle that they're working, I love it. I love it because, to be honest, there really wasn't an angle for them with these titles. There's really no tag teams. The only legitimate female or women's tag team in the WWE, other than Naomi and Sasha, was Toxic Attraction, and they're in NXT. Those are the NXT Tag Team Champions. Now, if you want to bring them up and have a storyline with them to see who the real women's tag team champs of the company are, that would be great. But other than that, you don't have an angle with those titles. So what do? The titles are already on somebody who's been a disgruntled wrestler before. We all know that. That's already been publicly put out there. Why not create a storyline that makes her seem disgruntled again? But now, not only is it her, but it's her tag team partner as well, who seems to have had a bit of a change of persona because Naomi's always been someone, hey, I'm not going to make a lot of fuss. I'm not going to make a lot of noise. I'm not going to complain about anything. Long as I'm getting paid, I'll do whatever y'all say. But the Naomi who's backed by Sasha Banks is saying, hey, you know what? I don't really like this either. Sasha, you might be onto something. Maybe they really are disrespecting us. And then out of this, what do you get? You get them being stripped of the titles. You give Naomi and Sasha some vacation time. And what do? You create a women's tag team tournament to crown new champions. What does that do? That forces WWE to create new women's tag teams.
Yep.
So again, I'm assuming we're gonna have Dewdrop and Nikki ASH. I'm assuming we're gonna have Natalia and Shayna. But other than that, unless they bring up some tag teams from NXT, I can't imagine what other tag teams they're gonna create. But it's gonna be exciting to see what they do with that storyline, to see what pairings they create for this tag team tournament. If I'm them and I'm working an angle, I have Sasha and Naomi come back as like a wild card for that tournament and have them be heels. Have them be heels that are publicly rebelling against the company, have a change of attitude, everything about them is different, and they come back and they win their titles again, but as heels. And you know me, to take it a bit further, you know I've always been a fan of them joining the bloodline.
I was just about to say that. Let Naomi go and pair up with her husband. And I know WWE doesn't do this anymore because everything's all supposed to be real and real. Let 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 Sasha Banks be Roman Reigns' girl.
Little
That's
thing.
that's old school WWE. We talking WWF days.
Come
Let
on
let,
now.
let Sasha Banks be Roman Reigns' girl.
Sasha and Roman have always had a real. They've always had a real good,
Yo, that's
a
old
real
school
good
right there,
chemistry.
man.
But it'd be fun though.
People would
It'd
know
be
it's a
fun.
lie,
Yeah, we know it's not real.
but
We
hey,
know it's
you got
not real.
it's WWE. You got
Sasha,
this.
come on. Sasha married to the dude making the wardrobes in the back. We know that. And that's fine. He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Oh my goodness.
Everybody love him. Everybody love him. He used to be a wrestler, didn't work out. Now he made the wardrobes.
What
He's a
was his
great guy.
name? What was his name?
Huh?
What was his name?
Who?
Yo, man, I tell you, last thing I'm gonna say about this. No, honestly, while you was talking saying all that, that's really the thought process. My take on it would be, after listening to what you just said, let Sasha and Naomi go on vacation. Let a tag team tournament happen. Let another tag team win the tournament and be crowned the women's tag team champions. Then you have Sasha and Naomi come back and say, hey, we left, but we never really lost and nobody really beat us.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have the two champions or the intern champ, whatever they call it when that's
Oh, the interim?
Yeah. Have them two fight to figure out who is the actual champion. That should be the storyline. Within that, you have them join the bloodline. That's what I would say. That would be my thing.
It would be nuts. Imagine the interim champions in the ring
And
waiting to see who that bloodline music hit.
And then Roman Reigns comes out with the Usos and they just clear the path and you see Sasha and Naomi come out from the back and just walk into the ring. Oh my, I need
Just let me do.
They on
Somebody need to
Indeed,
call
bro.
me. Somebody need to
And on it,
call
they got to be in
me.
on Indeed. They got to have creative jobs open WWE Indeed. But let's switch gears a little bit here, man. I know, we'll continue to follow that story and see what happens. All we know right
Mhm.
now is Sasha and Naomi have been stripped and have been suspended. We'll see what the storyline goes, whether it's real, whether it's a storyline. Who knows? But we'll see. Before we change gears, though, definitely want to shout out our guys again at Bet Online AG. Our
Yes,
partners
sir.
at Bet Online AG continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even the next NFL futures season coming up. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including the live betting and, of course, your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's really easy to get started. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up today and use our promo code CLNS50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. So let's switch gears a little bit, Sam. We was kind of talking about the tag team titles, the women's tag team titles, but let's quickly touch upon the unified tag team titles that we just saw
Aha.
take place this past Friday night SmackDown, where Rated RK Bro was defeated by the Usos, the Ones, and the Raw Tag Team Championships and the SmackDown Tag Team Championships were unified and are now held by the Usos, which gives the bloodline essentially, all the gold. Roman Reigns unified WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship champion, and like I just said, the Usos are the unified tag team champions. How do you feel about these belts getting unified? Roman Reigns is now tied to two belts. The Usos are now tied to two belts. Um, and it's great to see. This is you're now talking about a faction, the bloodline. Roman Reigns was already doing historical work by himself.
Hmm.
Usos have already been a historic tag team, been great for many years now. People have them as one of the greats. But now we're talking about a faction called the Bloodline that has all the gold and are beating
All of it.
everybody, dominating everything. But gold, is that good for the WWE and what they're trying to do? Is that bad? How dominant does it make the Bloodline look? Where do they rank in the history of factions now? Like now we're talking about Roman Reigns being a part of the Shield, and he has his history with that. Now we're talking about the Bloodline. Like this guy's building a hell of a resume. How you feeling about the Bloodline, the Usos unifying the belts?
With all due respect to the Shield, because you know how much I love the Shield. That version of the Shield doesn't hold a candle to the Bloodline. Respectfully,
What do you mean that
respectfully.
version of the Shield?
Before Roman ever became WWE champion,
Oh, and how they tried to come back together later on. The
yep,
the
that
the original version of the Shield, the
yes,
initial version of
yes.
the Shield.
When they came back together after they went their separate ways, that brief reunion, I mean, even that, they weren't that was more like a partnership out of necessity
Yeah.
than them really being the Shield again.
Hmm.
This faction though, the bloodline, to have actual relatives be dominating an entire promotion, that is
Not just a brand, the whole promotion.
the whole promotion. And I think it's genius. I think it's because, let's be real, people love dominant factions. And WWE hasn't had a truly dominant faction since when? I mean, if we want to go the Shield route, if we're talking title runs when they were actually the Shield, what was it? Seth and Roman were tag champs, and Dean was the Intercontinental Champion
Something
at the
like that.
same
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Okay, that's cute. That's fine, sure. But undisputed heavyweight universal champion, they had to create a brand new name for what he is. That's undisputed heavyweight universal champion. That's a sentence. And then you unify the tag belts, and it's not like those monumental victories in those unification matches were against anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Roman beat Brock
WrestleMania.
at WrestleMania. Brock has had this chokehold not only on the WWE, but on Roman Reigns specifically. That has always been Roman's kryptonite. Even Roman's prior victories against Brock, people looked at it like, yeah, but Brock's still better. This is the first time that people have actually accepted Roman over Brock. That was the last hurdle. That was the last hurdle, and he did it. And he did it in convincing fashion with Paul Heyman by his side.
Mm-hmm.
But then you unify these tag team belts, right? And who do they beat? The other hottest team, maybe not even just in WWE, but in all of the wrestling, RK Bro. Any tag team with Randy Orton is solidified automatically because, again, Randy's career, you could put him on any Mount Rushmore and no one's gonna bat an eye. That's a 14-time world champion.
Heard, heard, heard.
And what did he and you paired him with Riddle, who most people didn't even expect to be in WWE this long because when he first came out, the creative direction for him,
Yeah,
they made him seem like a clown.
true, very true.
And then you pair him with Randy Orton, and now he's one of the best wrestlers on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And that team, RK Bro, is extremely over
Yeah.
as a face tag team. They are beloved. That RK Bro thing is magic. And the Usos came in, albeit with a little help from the tribal chief,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended it. And they ended it to the point, not only did they take the belts away, they got Randy on the couch at home.
My thing is, does this, because at the end of the day, and we said this with Roman winning the, unifying the world heavyweight titles. There's no there's still a brand split. The brand is still split up. Roster on Raw, roster on SmackDown. You have all these belts tied together on three people. That's not a good look in my opinion, especially if you don't plan to have Roman appear on Raw and SmackDown every week. And I don't think the plan is maybe to have the Usos appear on Raw and SmackDown every week because the Bloodline, they rolling together wherever they go most of the time. And I'm saying I don't believe the plan is to have those guys appear on both shows like wrestlers used to do back in the day, in which I actually enjoyed. Like when the brand split happened, yeah, the draft and Raw versus Smack, it was cool. But I personally, I'm a fan of back in the day, Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H. I see you on Raw, mother. No, but I see you on SmackDown, you son of a. Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
I like. I like that. But it's different times right now. But you got all these belts tied up on three guys. What does that do for the rest of the roster?
So I think they have to do double duty now. I think Roman has
These
to
guys are
show
trying
up
to
on both
avoid that
brands.
though. You see how Roman is changing his contract and his schedule. Like these guys are trying to avoid double duty and stuff.
But I think that's part of the storyline because Roman's tribal chief head of the table storyline has him thinking he's bigger than the company now. So obviously he's going to play into that and be like, well, if I don't want to show up for both shows, I don't have to because I'm the tribal chief. But I think in reality, they'll play it so that, even if they don't show up on both shows every week, the fact that Roman can now face competitors from the blue brand or the red brand, and the same for the Usos, I think is dope, right? Because now that opens up the competitor pool for the bloodline. You remember we were talking a little while ago, and I said that the best thing that could come from this bloodline story is to have them get so big that it becomes the bloodline versus WWE.
Hmm.
Reminiscent to when NWO got so big, there were literal pay-per-views that were NWO versus WCW. I don't think it needs to get to that point because NWO, what made them cool ended up being their demise with the fact that they had everybody be in NWO and then it wasn't an exclusive club anymore.
Yeah.
But having the bloodline be at the center of the company and it being bloodline versus the world and everyone has to go through the bloodline if they want to be successful, I think that's dope because we want to see Roman against different competitors. When Roman was just the Universal Champ, we can only see him against SmackDown competitors.
Yep.
So we never got to see realistically how he would fare against the best competitors on Raw. And same for the Usos. Now they can stake their claim to being legitimate champions because they'll go up against anybody. They now have the opportunity to go up against anybody and to use Roman's term, smash anybody. That I don't know how do you make yourself more legitimate than opening up the pool to anybody who's in the promotion. We'll beat your ass on Raw. We'll beat your ass on SmackDown. We'll beat your ass on the pay-per-view. Anybody who wants it, come get it. I get your point about having all those belts tagged to three people because it kind of leaves the rest of the wrestlers without storylines. And I think that's why you have to make it a bloodline versus the world. You're gonna see some I think bloodline being so dominant is gonna create alliances. The same way, not to veer off on a tangent too much, but the same way Judgment Day caused a little Bullet Club, Ballad Club reunion with AJ Styles and Finn, and they're throwing Liv Morgan into the mix because of necessity. I think more alliances will be created to combat the bloodline. Drew and Roman are on a collision course with
Yep.
each other, but Drew's gonna need backup because he's gonna have to. The Usos are gonna be right there, so maybe we'll see a Drew and a Riddle team up because Riddle's made it clear that he has vengeance on his mind.
Yep.
So maybe you put those two together. Maybe um, I don't know. You can mix and match wrestlers from either promotions that wouldn't usually work together because one's from Raw, one's from SmackDown, and put them together just for one night to go up against the Bloodline. You're creating these makeshift alliances just because the WWE has to do something to stop the Bloodline.
True. Like it's great, and believe me, I'm a fan of the bloodline. I love Roman Reigns and the work he's done since he become the tribal chief. And them adding the bloodline and the Usos. Like I love it all. But eventually, as we know, all good things got to come to an end. Eventually, somebody got
Hmm.
to come up and stop the bloodline, stop the Usos, stop Roman Reigns. And I do think it may be them taking the belts off of the Usos. I don't think that's an issue that the WWE will have because Usos are great. They're in the bloodline, so they look dominant. But I feel as if they can get a tag team to come up and get a victory over Usos and take the belt off of those guys. Roman Reigns has now become a monster for the
Yep.
WWE. He's a beast. Like what Brock Lesnar was for the last couple of years, Roman Reigns has easily slid into that role, and he's the most dominant, singles competitor in the whole company. But again, he can't be that guy forever. This is now what he came back in what 19, late 19 or early 20. No, not 20, because he was gone during the
No,
pandemic. So he came what, late 2020 or early 21, and since then he's been dominant.
I think it was late 20. Because
Late,
he, because if you think about, he's been champion. No, because we're in 2022. He's been champion for over 600 days, but he did become champion like
he won the
because
belt in
remember,
early 2021, I want to say, or late 2020.
I think it was late. I think it was late 2020
Okay,
because he came back in 2020 because remember when he first came back, he came back still as a face, and then he disappeared again,
I'm talking about when
and
he came
then
back and paired with Paul Heyman. That was late
oh, you talking about
2020.
yep. So that was late 2020, and then
Yeah.
he
So
became
since he's
champion
come
like a
back,
month later.
yeah, since he's come back and paired with Paul Heyman, it's just been a complete dominant. We're talking over almost over 2 year run, and Roman Reigns is not going anywhere. But just because he's not going anywhere and he's built himself up to this massive level, doesn't necessarily mean you have to keep the belt on him. We've seen great stars over the years still be great even without the belt. Sometimes holding the belt can be great, but at the same time, the chase to get the belt can also be just as amazing. Some of Stone Cold Steve Austin, for example, some of his greatest runs have been trying to get the belt, like leading up to WrestleMania 19, the second time Austin and Rock fought at WrestleMania, where he joined Vince McMahon. I think
Great match.
that was
That's
either
good.
17 or 19.
I
I
think
think it
that's
was
19.
17. Yeah, I think it was WrestleMania 17. That storyline where Stone Cold was locked in on trying to get the belt and just like, I'll do whatever I need to do to get the belt off of you, Rock. I'll say all of this to say the chase sometimes is really great to watch as well. But the question remains because, like I said, Roman can't hold the belt forever. He can still be great, the tribal chief, whatever the case may be, but he doesn't necessarily need to have the belt around him to do that. So, who is the guy to do that? In my opinion, there's nobody hotter in the WWE right now as a face than Cody Rhodes.
Hmm.
So I asked the question: with Cody Rhodes coming back, and since came back to the WWE, he's been hot. He's in a great storyline now with Seth Rollins. Looks like that's someone going to come to an end at Hell in a Cell coming up in a couple of weeks. But is he that guy? I know Drew McIntyre is going to get his shot eventually, whatever that is going to be. But Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns is something we've seen before. Obviously, they
Hmm.
switched roles now where Roman's the heel and Drew's the face, but I still think Cody Rhodes is hotter than Drew McIntyre
Yeah.
when it boils down to it. Is Cody Rhodes the guy? Can he be the guy to take the belt off of Roman? Because he has the whole background coming back. His dad,
Yeah.
never won the world title. He wants to be the one to bring it to his family. I think the storyline writes itself. It writes itself. And when it comes down to the actual match, I think they can actually pull the trigger and say, look, we can give Cody the belt because the pop, the storyline, the way they drag it out and draw it out could really be amazing. I think Cody Rhodes can be that guy.
So, unfortunately, I have to agree. I don't like the thought of anyone but Roman being champion, and I'm biased.
It looks
You
great right
know,
now, Sam. Trust me, I'm with you.
I'm I'm very biased. I'm pretty sure I'm part Samoan now at this point. Like it is what it is. If I had the chance, I'd pull a Sami Zayn and act like I was part of the bloodline too. No, but if we're gonna be honest with ourselves, it only makes sense for Cody to win it. The storyline, not only does it write itself, it's golden.
Yep.
It is golden. You have the, their collision course, all the all the variables that you can throw into that storyline. Cody Rhodes' lineage with wrestling. Roman Reigns' lineage with wrestling.
Whew.
The Paul Heyman of Paul Heyman just adds to anything. He's the great multiplier. So
Yep.
anything that has to do with Paul Heyman is gonna be amazing. You have Cody leaving WWE, and Roman since he's come back, Paul Heyman must be giving him promo classes when they're not on the air because the promos he's been cutting since he's
Killing it.
turned heel, A1.
Yes.
So you know that Stardust shit is gonna come up. Excuse my language. The Stardust stuff is gonna come up, and he's gonna poke fun at it. He's gonna poke fun at his father never being able to reach the pinnacle of WWE. He's gonna talk about Goldust. He's gonna talk about him leaving AEW and coming back to WWE
It's a
after all these
beautiful
years.
storyline.
He's gonna talk about all of that. All of that. He's going to pile it up on Cody, and those promos are going to hit. But Cody's gonna hit back. Because this Cody can cut a promo too.
Sure can.
This Cody's promos now are emotional. They're like awe-inspiring. They're exciting. He tells the ultimate face promos. The crowd just eats it up. When he talks, when he starts to shoot those promos and he's talking about how he's doing it for his dad, he's doing it for his brother, he's doing it for every wrestler that didn't succeed their first time in WWE and had to come back and make amends for it, like a Drew McIntyre or anybody else that's gone down that path of not being able to take that next step their first time around in the WWE. When he starts to cut those inspirational promos, people are going to eat them up. And then Cody's gonna be able to, big himself up too. He's gonna talk about the fact that there's only so much that Roman's been able to do by himself. If they use Cody right, Cody's gonna be like, who is Roman Reigns without a faction? We know Roman Reigns in the Shield.
Yeah.
We know Roman Reigns in the Bloodline. We know Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman. Who's Roman Reigns when he's by himself? Can you really cut it by yourself? Can you win the big one by yourself when it's just you? And when those questions start going out there, because Cody's gonna be like, I did it all by myself. I came back. I didn't bring nobody with me. And look at
And
the
I'm at
run
the
that I've
top.
been on.
Then I'm right
I'm at
here.
the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's if that belt's going to come off of Roman, it's got to be Cody. And when it does happen, because I'm with you, I think it will. I think it'll happen at WrestleMania. I don't know.
Not WrestleMania. They got something in store. You know
No,
what they got in store for
yeah,
WrestleMania.
that Rock and Roman thing is gonna
I
happen
think
at
that's happening
WrestleMania
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
So maybe
SummerSlam, Survivor Series. It's
if
gonna be one of the main ones.
I tell you what, if it's Survivor Series, thanks.
Oh, it's in Boston.
Yeah, thanks.
Ah, I'll
Thanks.
take
If
it.
it's Survivor,
Hey,
sure the hell will.
nah, a storyline like that, especially the way you just laid it out, that can't take place at no Hell in a Cell, TLC, Money in the
No.
Bank, or whatever them other little in between shows are. Something that big got to take place at SummerSlam or Survivor Series. I would
Yep.
say, assuming SummerSlam happens in like July, August.
Yeah, that's too early. That's not enough time to build that up. It won't happen at
I
SummerSlam.
wouldn't want it to happen at Survivor Series because you know what? I honestly think, in my opinion, Survivor Series may be when they kick off the Rock storyline. because that timeline between Survivor Series, which would be what, November, a storyline between Rock and Roman Reigns from November to April. I think that's the perfect amount of time, in my opinion.
Well, you could do both. You could do both. You could have Roman lose his belts and start that storyline with The Rock at the same time.
That
Let's
way,
say,
the belts are not tied to the Rock match, because I don't think the belts need
yep.
to be tied to the Rock match. I
No,
think
it's gonna be stupid.
Roman versus Rock is just as big with no belts involved. Rock don't need
No,
to
you
win the
don't. You
belt.
don't. No, you don't need a belt. I say if I'm WWE creative, I say you have Rock come out during the match, have people think he's gonna help Roman, and he helped Cody win it all,
And
and
that starts the storyline.
that starts the storyline.
And then they could just flip it to who's the head of the table, the bloodline, and who's been feeding the family, all of that, And that match is gonna be huge. And that, without the belts involved, can easily be the main event of WrestleMania.
It's gonna
It
be
will
the
be the
GOAT.
easily.
It's gonna blow everything out. It's gonna blow everything else out of the water because I can already hear the kind of promos. I can
Yep.
hear Roman saying, you talking about how The Rock kept leaving and coming back and how he's Hollywood and how he doesn't have it anymore. I can hear The Rock saying that Roman, how Roman only started to rep his Samoan heritage after Paul
Ooh.
Heyman jumped into the fray. He was like,
Hmm.
where was all this tribal chief head of the table stuff when you were in the Shield?
True.
You didn't have our grandfathers and our uncles walking you out to the ring when
Facts.
you was facing Brock Lesnar and all and getting your ass beat. So where was all that? And that true head of the table thing,
Yeah.
that's
Because I
gonna that's nice.
it's good. It's gonna be, and that's gonna be the main basis of the storyline. Who's the true head of the table? Who's really feed the family? This and that. I do see, because Rock's not sticking around. We all know that. The guy just turned 50 years old at that. Roman would come out victorious because he's still going to be around for the next couple of years before he probably shifts off to Hollywood as well. But the storyline, just like the Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns storyline, writes itself. Rock and Reigns writes itself as well. And that's two money making storylines that the WWE has right there, ready to go. They could pull the trigger at the right time.
Again, you kind of hope and pray that they don't mess it up because it's almost too easy.
Yeah, yeah.
Whenever things are too easy for the WWE, Vince steps in and goes, never mind.
Never mind. Let's do something different. Let's go a different way.
Let's go a different way because this sounds too good
Yeah.
and they'd like it too much. So let's just go piss in their coffee and ruin their day. So
Hey,
it's
it's right there. We got to see how it unfolds. You know, I think I've always thought this, and you think this is, well. WWE could easily like really dominate the wrestling landscape if they just did things a different type of way. But obviously, we don't work for the company.
all they gotta do is hire us.
But I'm
That's really
telling you,
all it takes.
shoot them up to the moon. But I mean, I bet a lot of people think that. But I really think that when we talk,
No, I don't think a damn thing. I know this.
when we talk about wrestling and the storylines and how we think things should go, I'd be like, yo, damn, they really need to hire us because I think we can make things really poppin'. But hey, it is
Well,
what it is. Let's hope for the
send
best.
an email. We'll send an
Hey
email,
man,
make a
why not?
call.
Why not? See what's up. See what they're thinking. But Sam, man, a lot of things can continue to unfold with the wrestling landscape, especially in the WWE. I know you and I will be here to discuss it every time we get a chance on Double M Live. So, let's stay tuned to see what happens with the Naomi and Sasha situation. Let's see how
Mhm.
things unfold with the bloodline and what WWE does with the storyline with these guys literally having a stranglehold on the company right now with all the belts. Could be some interesting times in wrestling coming up for sure. And we'll keep it locked and be ready to have a discussion right here on Double M.
Yeah, you know where to find me. You know where to find us. Double M, one of the few places where wrestling's still cool.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We'll talk about it wherever, whenever.
Without a doubt. So for the executive producer right there, Cool Sam, I'm Mike Nice. Again, this is Double M Live, powered by Bet Online AG. Like you already know, it's Double M to the moon. Always. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And look forward to checking in with y'all soon.
We the ones.